Hey everyone, welcome to week 2 of the semester. We are getting ready to start with some content this week. Really, we're just going to be introducing you to the world of sports psychology. We're going to be talking a little bit about what sports psychology is, what it means, who benefits from sports psychology, and also the types of professions that you can go into after you've studied sports psychology in the field. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, here we go. Welcome to the wonderful world of sport and exercise psychology. So let's start off by defining the field. What is sport psychology? A lot of the time when studying this field, you will sort of combine it with exercise psychology as well. I don't want to say it's the same thing, but a lot of the same principles, the same concepts and theories can be applied also to exercise. So just know that even though we're talking about sports psychology specifically in this class, exercise psychology is also included and embedded. And we'll be using exercise examples kind of throughout the class, though this class doesn't talk about it specifically. Okay, so sports psychology. There are probably quite a few definitions of what sport is, but the definition that we'll use in this class is pretty broad. So essentially, any sort of physical activity that involves competition, strategy, and a win or a loss usually. And then we have the word psychology. Psychology meaning the study of people and their thoughts, their feelings, and their behaviors. And so if you combine the two, sports psychology is the scientific study of people and their behaviors in a sport and exercise context. And what you will learn in this class is how you will be able to use those theories and concepts to create strategies that will help them to improve in their performance. So to better illustrate what sports psychology is, I thought I would show this video. It's a really great example of how sports psychology is used, of what sports psychology looks like, especially to professional athletes. It's a really good video to just start off and sort of throw you into what sports psychology is. I don't know if you know who Evan Longoria is, but he is a professional baseball player. He currently plays for the San Francisco Giants. This video is a little old. It follows him after he's drafted back in 2008, but again, it's a really great example of how sports psychology is used by professional athletes.
All right, everyone, let's get it going. Jeremy, what do you got?
A guy who 16 months ago had never played in the major leagues, but now he's been elected to 2 All-Star teams, won the Rookie of the Year award of the American League unanimously, and many people in baseball are saying that he has the potential to be the best ever at his position.
Where was he a year and a half ago?
That's the thing that makes Evan Longoria in a lot of ways so special. I mean, he really did come out of nowhere in a sense. Not only was he not drafted out of high school, not only was he not recruited by a single Division I baseball program, he was barely recruited by Division III, which doesn't award scholarships.
What changed for him?
Well, he'll tell you the most important thing that changed for him was his mental maturation.
Walk slow to the plate. Remember your breathing.
Well, there's a drive. Deep down left field line.
Stick with the approach. Keep the routine going.
Takes that one to left field. That is deep. Way back.
Get into the game. Don't worry about the result.
Deep to left field. How far is this one going to go? Evan Longoria with a monster blast.
What goes on in the mind of Tampa Bay Rays third baseman Evan Longoria has helped him emerge as one of the game's highest profile young stars. The focus, the sense of calm, the faith in process, they're all essential components of his makeup.
Let's go to work. Come on.
Everybody says the same thing to me. They watch him go up to the plate, holds the bat like he's sleeping until he explodes at the ball.
Evan Longoria drives the first pitch to the right center field and deep. Thompson is back to the wall. Across the right tank, a home run.
At the age of 23, Longoria is already a two-time All-Star. His highly developed mental approach to the game, not to mention his willingness to discuss it, distinguishes him from his peers. It also gives him an edge.
To us, it looks like it just happens naturally, but there is a method. His ability to be in the present moment makes him one of the best. When the pitch is being thrown, he's already forgotten about last at bat, and all that exists is this particular pitch, and this particular pitch is coming to me right now.
I see a lot of guys who have a lot of physical ability, but don't have enough up top to, be able to control certain situations, or, some guys don't really buy into the whole mental training side of baseball, I guess. But for me, I've been doing it for so long that it's something that I trust.
Longoria has been doing it for 5 years. Before then, there was no reason to believe he'd develop into a major leaguer. In 2003, when he graduated from high school, 1,480 players were selected in the baseball draft. He wasn't one of them, nor was he recruited to play Division I college baseball. Did you deserve to be overlooked when you were coming out of high school?
Definitely. Yeah, I wasn't good. I mean, I knew the game. I enjoyed playing the game. As far as ability and talent, I wasn't a professional player at that time.
To continue to play the game, Longoria enrolled at Rio Hondo, a junior college just a few miles from his hometown in Southern California. After hitting .430, Longoria transferred to Division I Long Beach State. There, he was introduced to the theories of Ken Rivas, a professor of kinesiology and author of several books on sports psychology.
The essence is the idea of learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable and having something to go to when the garbage hits the fan, because the garbage will hit the fan, and let's be ready for it.
More than anything else, Rivas preaches the gospel of mental preparation and structure. He teaches players to recognize failure as an unavoidable part of the game and how not to dwell on it. In the last 2 decades, he's been a paid advisor to several college and major league teams. At Long Beach State, his most apt pupils included Longoria and his teammate Troy Tulowitzki, now in his 3rd season with the Colorado Rockies.
Ken Rivas, he's done a lot of good things for me and Evan. It's all about relaxing, taking your breath, and just making sure that the game's not moving too quick.
When you first were exposed to Ken's teachings, even you said, come on, this stuff can't really work. What was the turning point, you think?
We started playing in a lot of stadiums where it was a packed house, or the pressure was on, and that's when I started to realize when the game becomes more of a mental grind, I needed something to go to.
How do you think those theories helped him?
I think it calmed him. I think the mental game really helped him, and how he was way balanced after bad at-bats or bad games.
Well, come on, you can't just turn it over like that.
As Longoria matured physically, his mental training allowed him to maximize his talents. He emerged as a top prospect in the summer of 2005 when he was named MVP of the Cape Cod League, a traditional breeding ground for high draft picks. In the 2006 draft, 3 years after failing to be selected at all, Longoria was the 3rd overall pick.
The Tampa Bay Devil Rays select Evan Longoria.
How did he get so much better so quickly?
I think his openness, that it didn't come easy, that he went through the rejection, and he was willing to take the risk to grow versus playing it safe all the time.
Longoria's mental maturity helped convince the Rays that he could be the cornerstone of the franchise. Just 6 games into his major league career, they signed him to a 9-year contract worth up to $44.5 million. Coincidentally, Longoria had found another true believer in Rays manager Joe Maddon, a longtime proponent of the Rivas method.
What Ken does is it's an attempt to make you think in a different or more clear way, controlling the controllable aspects of playing this game.
Every time I see Evan, it's hello, and what do you got for me today, Ken? When you're putting on the batting gloves, put on the batting gloves. When you step into the box, be in the box. Be where you need to be when you need to be there.
Swing and rocking it into left center field. That's going to roll all the way to the warning track.
There is a zen-like quality to Longoria's focusing techniques.
Ken talks a lot about the focal point. If I make an error in the field or if I swing at a pitch in the dirt at the plate and I really feel like, you know, I've lost control of you know, either my emotions or the at-bat, that's when I step out. I always look at the left field foul pole, at the top of the left field foul pole. Just
Wherever
because,
you are, just in
yeah,
this
just
ballpark.
because I know there's always going to be a top of the left field foul pole. So
And it works for you.
it works for me.
Even when he's not in the lineup, Longoria follows a mental routine. He'll slide on his batting gloves and imagine himself at bat. When he is playing, rituals help him relax and focus.
But let's say, for example, here comes his pitch. He fouls it off. He will step out of the box. He'll undo his gloves, release that pitch, grips the gloves back on, steps in the box, and he's back.
Where do you draw the line between what you think is superstition, what is habit, and what is really about focusing?
There are so many weird things that us baseball players do that you know, it would be classified all as superstition. But, you know, I think superstition would be, you know, if my mind was all messed up when I got to the plate if I didn't do that.
And it's not that.
No, it's not that at all.
Hey, me and you. Ground ball, come on.
Not everyone attributes Longoria's success to his mental focus. There's his work ethic, his bat speed, and another undeniable factor. Your buddies out in California that we spoke to said that they thought it was actually a big moment in your career and development when Eva Longoria became famous.
It seemed like everywhere I went, I mean, that was the only thing I heard for 2.5, 3 years now. But it kind of got my name out there, you know, whether it was Eva or Evan. I mean, obviously they remember the last name.
What I understand, last year she got you a bottle of champagne when you made the All-Star team. What did she get you this year?
Nah, she gave up. She gave up on me.
In the 2008 World Series, the chant "Eva, Eva" floated through the air in Philadelphia. Whether or not the taunting bothered him, Evan Longoria went 1 for 20 against the Phillies.
It could have been the pressure that I was putting on myself. It could have been the outside distractions that I let get to me. And I look back now and kind of kick myself in the butt for that. Things kind of sped up on me. I think that was part of the whole experience for me too, is just learning those feelings.
I mean, he gets upset, but he's got some tools that he uses, and he knows that's part of the game. And then this goes back to his background where it didn't come easy. He had to struggle at times.
From undrafted and unrecruited to the All-Star game and the World Series. It's been a quick trip for Evan Longoria. Now comes the hard part.
Okay, sorry, the video cut off a little bit, but it was just at the end there. So, like I said, that video is just full of some really amazing, what we call sports psychology nuggets that you will hopefully learn and see throughout the semester in this class as you learn more about what mental skills are. As you saw in the video, Evan went to Long Beach State University, which is my alma mater for my master's program. So really cool to see. Just hearing about the awareness he had about himself, how he was during certain situations, and the way he was able to analyze sort of what was going wrong when things did go wrong and how to mentally reset and focus on the next play. All of that is so important, and it's sort of the essence of what sports psychology is. And so I thought, again, this was just a really nice, interesting video that shows how mental preparation and sports psychology can really set you apart from other athletes. Shows how mental preparation and sports psychology can really set you apart from other athletes. So this is just a figure in your book to, again, sort of illustrate what the field of sports psychology is, right? So we see here sort of this bigger sports science domain, the bigger circle, right? We're talking about all your kinesiology subjects and concepts, motor learning, sports medicine, motor development, the physical aspects of sport. That is your sort of sports science. And then you have here on the left side, psychology, which is all what's in your brain. You have your personality issues and abnormal psychology that you might have, some of the mental health, clinical stuff that we talk about. Sports psychology really is just the bridge of those two, the combination of both kinesiology and psychology together. So sports psychology, we're talking about theories and principles of psychology and how they are used in the athletic setting. And usually, we'll talk about this a lot, it's to enhance performance. It's using psychology, inputting it into sport so that someone performs better, right? And then we also have this other way around where we look at sport experiences, and how that sort of changes a human being, how it becomes a medium for human enrichment. So what we're talking about in this sense is sports psychology allows us to look at those who play sport, athletes, competitors, look at them in a psychology lens and sort of analyze what person they become. And we'll look at this a little bit closely in the next slide. So sport and exercise psychology objectives. There are two objectives to sports psychology, and that is one, to understand the effects of psychological factors on physical or motor performance. This is very important. So understanding how what's happening in your head can affect what your physical or motor output is, right? So when things are happening in your head, it's likely that you aren't able to perform as optimally as you would want, right? And so some examples of research questions that use this sort of objective include, how does anxiety, so again, how does anxiety, which happens in your head, affect a basketball player's accuracy in free throw shooting? Okay, so how does anxiety affect someone's free throw shot? The second question, how does a coach's reinforcement and punishment influence team's cohesion? Right, so we're looking at psychological factors, and we'll learn about this, reinforcement and punishment. How does that affect how a team works together on a court and their performance? And then lastly, does imagery training facilitate recovery in injured athletes and exercisers? So how does this mental skill of imagery help injured athletes recover or injured exercisers recover? Okay, so again, this is how psychology affects performance. The second objective is to understand the effects of physical activity on psychological development, health, and well-being. So again, we're looking at how participation in sport or in some sort of physical activity, how that affects how someone thinks, their health, or their well-being, okay? And again, some questions here that illustrate that is, does running reduce anxiety and depression? So does your involvement in a physical activity affect your anxiety and depression that's happening psychologically? Do young athletes learn to be overly aggressive from participating in youth sport? So how does participating in youth sport, does that affect the level of aggression in youth? Does participation in daily physical education classes improve child self-esteem? And again, does college athletes, are they different than regular students in terms of personality because they play sport? So these are all really great research questions. These objectives are really important, so I highly recommend that you make sure that you know the difference between the two. And so who benefits from sports psychology? As we saw in the video, athletes obviously benefit from learning about sports psychology, but as we look into the field and as it expands, we've seen that application of sports psychology goes far beyond sport. it's starting to become this domain of performance psychology rather than just sports psychology. And so who are we talking about here? Obviously, we're talking about athletes of all kinds. We have Paralympic athletes, athletes who maybe aren't in competition, right? Like rock climbers. And then obviously we have professional collegiate athletes and youth as well. But we're also talking about other performance domains. And so when you really think about it, who do we consider to be performers? Obviously, performers, we think of the artistry, right? So singers, actors, dancers. We have my favorite performer right here, Justin Timberlake, love him. And then beyond sort of that artist performance aspect, we think about the military. So sports psychology is becoming very popular among the military, and they use a lot of mental skills in a lot of high pressure situations. So being able to stay focused, obviously, in those situations is very important. We have firefighters, policemen, EMTs, again, being able to function, maintain your composure in very anxiety provoking situations is very important. And we also have doctors, right? Surgeons and nurses who are taking care of people and who essentially have people's lives in their hands. Those can also be very high pressure situations. And so learning these mental skills and sports psychology skills can be very helpful. And then beyond that, we also just have to remember that a lot of the research of sports psychology also includes not just athletes, not just performers, but we're looking at coaches as well, right? We look at the fan bases, how those spectators can influence people's performance. Parents are a huge influence among youth and youth sport, and also officials, right? Who, in a sense, are also performing in many ways. So they are also included in the sports psychology field and what we try to study. Okay, so let's get into the different types of professions that you can get into within the field. And there's 3 areas people typically go into. First is teaching, then we have consulting and research. First, we have teaching, which is obviously what I'm doing right now. What university professors do is teach the field, usually in a university setting. Then we have research. Researchers are constantly conducting studies and publishing in journals. So doing research is very important. It's not for everybody, but it's still very important in the field. Essentially, the foundation of what we are able to teach and share with our athletes and our students. Studies are being conducted all over the world in sports psychology in many different areas throughout the field. And then lastly, we have consulting. Consulting is when you work with teams and athletes to teach them mental skills, right? And you are actually on the field, on the court, helping your athletes. And this is majority of what people like to do, right? Most people want to work directly with athletes and find it really rewarding to help them improve their game. So these are the 3. People tend to lean toward one or the other. A lot of people do more than one. I hopefully want to do all 3. I think that would be really cool. But these are the main directions you can go. So there are 2 very different specialties that require different types of education in order to practice, so to speak, sports psychology, right? And the first is working with athletes who have more serious mental health issues, emotional disorders, require a clinical or counseling sports psychologist. And because clinical and counseling sports psychologists have extensive training in psychology, they have the credentials, they're able to treat these more serious emotional disorders that can affect athletes. So again, athletes with depression, athletes with eating disorders who abuse substance, things like that. Those require a licensed clinical or counseling psychologist. The other end of that is an educational sports psychologist. So these professionals also have very extensive training, usually a PhD, but they're more trained in kinesiology and exercise science environment. And so they are able to help athletes with mental skills training and performance enhancement issues. However, they are not able to treat, again, those emotional serious disorders. You can work as an educational sports psychologist with a master's degree. There are some certifications that you can do to work as a mental performance coach, but again, they are only able to teach mental skills and not treat mental health issues. Usually the professors you see at university are usually along this educational sports psychologist realm. And some of the doctors that you see working with professional teams specifically, they are usually in the clinical and counseling sports psychology area. So these are just a list of some of the resources that you can look into if you're interested in being part of the profession. Organizations that specifically a lot of sports psychology professionals join. There are conferences usually for these organizations every single year that we go to share research and network and things like that. The number one organization that you'll want to look into if this is something you're interested in is the Association of Applied Sports Psychology, or what we call ASP. Definitely look into their website. They have a lot of good information. That is also where you can get certified to be a mental performance coach. So if you're interested in working with athletes and want to go to grad school, that is definitely something to look into as well. And then we have the list of the journals where a lot of the research is housed in. There's a lot of research currently going on. So definitely check out some of those journals if you're interested in any particular subject or topic within sports psychology. And then lastly, just a few take-home messages. So what did we learn about sports psychology today? So sports psychology is not just for problem athletes. Even very successful athletes use sports psychology and try to learn sports psychology. The stigma around sports psychology is not as prevalent. There's a lot of interest now among athletes in, stepping up their game and learning about sports psychology. It differentiates between athletes who are similar in physical ability and skill. So as we saw in the Evan Longoria video, Evan was not really anything special. They explained that in the video, but the fact that he took the time to learn mental skills and sought out sports psychology, he was able to set himself apart from a lot of the other athletes, right? And even got drafted and landed a multi-million-dollar deal. So here's a quote here that just kind of exemplifies that. Future improvements in swimming may come not from better physical preparation, but from better mental and psychological preparation for both practice and competitions. So just imagine two athletes practicing every single day, same amount of time each and every week, has the same type of skill set. What can set them apart from each other is who has a better mental preparation. And we see that a lot when talking to professional athletes, just sort of what set them apart from others. So sports psychology helps to perform more optimally and consistently. There's no quick fix approach to sports psychology. I like to say that sports psychology and mental skills is a lot like practicing any other physical skill, right? You're not going to be good at it at first. It might not help you at first, but if you keep practicing it, not only does it become a habit, but you start to see results. So again, it's not a quick fix. It takes time to learn and do, but in the end, it's very rewarding. It needs to be practiced like physical skills, just like I said. It's a life skill thing, right? So you'll see later on the semester, we'll talk about goal setting, visualization and imagery, how to concentrate better, things like that. So all those things obviously can also be used just in everyday life as students, as employees and workers, whatever it may be. And it'll be useful just for everyday life. So that's it for today. Next week, we're going to dive right into motivation and theories of motivation and what makes people motivated to play sport. So see you next week.